I caught my wife cheating on me over 2 years ago, but our marriage looked so perfect that I never said a word. Then one day, I walked into our bedroom and found her with another man. She thought it was the first time I discovered the affair. She had no idea I'd known the truth all along. Hello, Reddit I plus, here. Throwaway account because several people involved use Reddit, and I don't know if any of them browse this subreddit. I'm 34 years old. My wife Natalie is 36. We've been married for 9 years and together for almost 12. We have two daughters, ages 8 and 6, and a little boy who just turned 3. From the outside, we probably look like one of those couples people quietly envy. We don't scream at each other. We don't sleep in separate bedrooms. We still hold hands at the grocery store. Every Friday night after the kids fall asleep, we order takeout, watch terrible reality TV, and argue over which contestant is the biggest disaster. Every Sunday morning, we make pancakes together while the kids destroy the kitchen pretending they're helping. I know how fake that probably sounds coming from someone who's about to admit his wife has been cheating on him. But that's the strange part. None of it is fake. She laughs at my terrible jokes. She kisses me before leaving for work every morning. She texts me random pictures of coffee mugs because she knows I collect them. She still reaches for my hand in the middle of the night without realizing she's doing it. If you removed one secret from our marriage, I'd swear we had the happiest relationship of anyone I know, which makes everything I'm about to tell you even harder to explain. It started almost 3 years ago. I manage a regional warehouse, and my schedule is usually predictable. Clock in at 7, lunch around noon. Home by 5 unless something catches fire, literally or figuratively. One Tuesday, our internet crashed halfway through the building. Nobody could process orders, so my supervisor sent everyone home for a couple of hours while technicians fixed it. Instead of wasting time sitting in the parking lot, I decided to surprise Natalie with lunch. She worked from home 3 days a week as a graphic designer, and I figured she'd appreciate a sandwich from the deli she loved. I even remember thinking how lucky I was. 12 years together, and I still got excited about surprising my wife. Life has a cruel sense of humor. As I turned onto our street, I noticed a dark blue SUV parked halfway down the block. Nothing unusual about that. People visited neighbors all the time. Then I pulled into my driveway. The front door wasn't closed all the way. Not open, just not latched. Natalie never left doors like that, ever. She grew up in a rough neighborhood and checked every lock twice before bed. I grabbed the bag of food and pushed the door open. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. I called her name. Nothing. Our golden retriever wandered over, wagging his tail, then immediately trotted upstairs. I followed him. Halfway up the staircase, I heard voices. A man's voice. Low, calm, familiar. I couldn't place it. Then I heard Natalie laugh. Not the polite laugh she used with clients, not the laugh she gave our kids, the real one. The one that always made me smile. I froze. At first, I honestly thought maybe her brother had stopped by, or one of the neighbors. Then I heard her say something that made my stomach feel like it had fallen through the floor. I've missed you. Silence. Then his voice. So have I. I don't remember deciding to move. One second I was standing on the stairs, the next I was backing away as quietly as I could. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the food. I made it outside without making a sound, sat in my truck, started the engine, then turned it back off. I don't know how long I sat there, 5 minutes, maybe 20. I kept waiting for my brain to tell me there had to be another explanation. There wasn't. About half an hour later, the front door opened. A man walked out. He wasn't trying to hide. He wasn't looking over his shoulder. He looked completely comfortable, like he'd parked there 100 times before. He got into the blue SUV and drove away. Natalie stepped onto the porch a few seconds later. She stretched, looked around the neighborhood, then smiled to herself before going back inside. That smile haunted me for weeks, not because she looked guilty, because she looked happy. I drove back to work without touching the sandwiches. I threw them away in the dumpster behind the warehouse before anyone saw them. That evening, I walked through the front door at exactly 5:30. Natalie greeted me with a hug. Long day? The longest. She kissed my cheek. Dinner's almost ready. I looked into her eyes, searching for something, anything. Fear, panic, regret. There was nothing. She asked about work. The kids showed me drawings they'd made. We ate spaghetti. After dinner, we played a board game. At bedtime, she curled up against me on the couch and rested her head on my shoulder while we watched a movie. Everything felt normal, painfully normal. I barely slept. The next morning, I almost confronted her before she left for work. I even practiced the words in the bathroom mirror. Who's the man in the blue SUV? Simple, direct, impossible to misunderstand. Instead, I said, drive safe. She smiled. You too. Then she was gone. For weeks, I convinced myself I'd imagined everything. Maybe he was an old friend. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe there was some bizarre explanation that would make me feel ridiculous for jumping to conclusions. Then the same SUV appeared again. Same day, Same time. This time I stayed 2 streets away, where I could see our driveway without being noticed. He arrived at exactly 11:12. Natalie opened the front door before he even reached it. She had been waiting. He stayed 38 minutes. I timed it. When he left, she stood in the doorway watching until his SUV disappeared around the corner. That became my life. Not every week, not even every month. Just enough that I couldn't pretend it wasn't real. Every few weeks, I'd notice a pattern. She'd text me around mid-morning. "How's your day going?" Or, "Busy today?" Perfectly innocent messages. At least they looked innocent. Eventually, I realized she wasn't checking on me because she missed me. She was checking to make sure I was exactly where I was supposed to be. At work. Far away. The realization hurt far more than discovering the affair. Because it meant every text carried 2 meanings. One for me, one for her. I should have confronted her. Everyone reading this is probably wondering why I didn't. The truth is, I asked myself that question every single day, and every single day I came up with a different answer. I loved her, I loved our children, I loved our life. I was terrified that one conversation would destroy everything we'd spent over a decade building. So I stayed silent. At first I told myself it would only be for a day, then a week, then a month. Before I knew it, 3 years had passed. And neither of us had spoken a single word about the secret that lived between us. At least, that's what I believed until last Thursday. Because last Thursday, one tiny mistake she made changed everything. And for the first time in 3 years, I realized she might have known I knew all along. The next Thursday started like every other Thursday. At 10:18 that morning, my phone buzzed. "Natalie, hope your day's not too crazy. Love you." 3 years ago, that message would have made me smile. Now it made my stomach tighten. I looked at the clock. She always sent the message within 15 minutes of him arriving. Only this time, something felt different. I don't know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I was simply exhausted from carrying a secret that wasn't mine to carry. Instead of replying, I grabbed my keys and left work. The drive home felt longer than usual. When I turned onto our street, the blue SUV was already there. Only this time, it wasn't parked down the block. It was sitting right in my driveway, like he owned the place. Something inside me finally snapped. Not rage, not jealousy, just clarity. For 3 years, I'd been protecting a marriage that only one of us was protecting. I walked to the front door. It wasn't locked. I stepped inside. The house was quiet except for voices coming from the living room. They weren't whispering, they were laughing. Laughing. As though this was just another ordinary afternoon. I rounded the corner. Natalie froze. The color drained from her face so quickly it looked like someone had flipped a switch. The man beside her stood up so fast he knocked over a coffee mug. Nobody said a word. I looked at him first. "You should leave." He opened his mouth. I said, "Leave." He looked at Natalie. She stared at the floor. Without another word, he grabbed his jacket and walked past me. I didn't even look back as the front door closed behind him. The silence that followed felt endless. Natalie finally whispered my name. "How long?" I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh someone makes when they finally realize they've been living inside a lie. "That's really your first question?" Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Please." "No." She reached toward me. I stepped backward. "No." Her hand stopped in midair. "I've known for 3 years." She looked like I'd punched her. "No." I saw him the first time by accident. She covered her mouth. I saw him again, and again, and again. I watched you text me to make sure I was at work. I watched his SUV pull into my driveway. I watched him leave my house. I knew. Every word made her cry harder. You knew all this time?" I nodded. "I wanted to believe you'd stop. I wanted to believe one day you'd come to me and tell me the truth. I wanted to believe the woman I married still existed." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. "I'm so sorry." "I know. It didn't mean I didn't love you." I shook my head. "Don't. It's true. Don't insult me." She stared at me. "You loved me enough to lie to my face every single day. You loved me enough to let me kiss you goodbye after another man had been in this house. You loved me enough to text me, 'I love you,' while checking whether the coast was clear." She buried her face in her hands. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." "No," I answered quietly. "A mistake happens once. This was thousands of choices." She cried harder. "I'll end it. You should have ended it 3 years ago. I'll quit my job. I don't care. We can move. I don't care. I'll go to counseling. I don't care." Every solution she offered was for herself. Not once did she ask what I needed. Finally, she whispered the sentence I knew was coming. "Please don't destroy our family." I looked around the house we'd built together. Birthday pictures, vacation photos, crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator. Everything looked exactly the same, except none of it felt like home anymore. "You destroyed it." I just finally noticed. For almost an hour, she tried everything. She blamed loneliness. She blamed excitement. She blamed bad decisions. She blamed childhood trauma. She blamed the stress of motherhood. She blamed routine. She blamed herself. Then, when none of that worked, she blamed me. You worked so much. You were emotionally unavailable, and you stopped making me feel exciting. I actually smiled. There it was. The manipulation. The attempt to spread the responsibility around so she wouldn't have to carry it alone. I raised my hand. Stop. She fell silent. You don't get to rewrite history because you're scared now. She stared at me. You had thousands of chances to tell me. You chose him. No. Yes. You chose him every Tuesday. You chose him every Thursday. You chose him every lie. Her shoulders slumped. She knew. There was nothing left to say. That evening, I packed a suitcase. She followed me from room to room crying. Please. I kept folding clothes. I'll never forgive myself. I believe you. We can fix this. No. Please look at me. I have. For 12 years. I'm finally seeing you clearly. She grabbed my arm. I gently removed her hand. I'm not yelling. I'm not insulting you. I'm not getting revenge. But I am leaving. And tomorrow, my attorney will begin filing for divorce. She broke down completely. I'll lose everything. I answered softly. No, you already did. I drove to my brother's house that night. The hardest part wasn't leaving her. It was explaining to the kids over the next few weeks why Dad wasn't sleeping at home anymore. We agreed not to tell them the details. They deserved better than being caught in the middle of adult failures. The divorce took almost 11 months. Natalie fought it at first. Then she begged. Then she promised she'd spend the rest of her life earning my trust back. When she realized I wasn't changing my mind, she switched tactics again. Friends started calling. Some asked me if I'd really throw away such a wonderful marriage over one bad chapter. Others hinted I should forgive her for the children's sake. Very few knew the truth. It wasn't one chapter. It was nearly 3 years of deception, 3 years of calculated lies, 3 years of looking me in the eye while living another life behind my back. Eventually, even she stopped arguing. The day our divorce became final, she quietly handed me a small box. Inside was my wedding ring. I know you don't want yours anymore, she said. I thought maybe you should have mine too. I looked at it for a moment, then closed the box. I hope someday you find peace. She nodded through tears. I hope you find happiness. I think I already have. She looked confused. For the first time in years, I said, I don't have to wonder whether the person waiting for me at home is telling me the truth. I walked away without looking back. That was 18 months ago. Today, I'm rebuilding my life. The kids split their time between us and are doing far better than I feared. As for Natalie, I've heard she eventually ended things with the other man. Apparently, once the secrecy disappeared, so did whatever kept them together. I don't hate her. Hate is exhausting. I simply don't trust her. And without trust, love isn't enough. If anyone reading this is carrying a secret like I carried mine, learn from my mistake. Silence doesn't protect a relationship. It only postpones the inevitable while stealing pieces of yourself. I thought I was preserving my family. In reality, I was sacrificing my own peace. Walking away wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done. The hardest thing was realizing I should have done it years earlier.